All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, we have a few topics. You wanted to talk some physical therapy type stuff, but also we are continuing what we were talking about last week, as we said, what unfolds with these documents coming out. And you said Bongino said some stuff. So hopefully we get some insights there. And yeah, if there's any hiccups, I have a new computer and Zoom is different on this one. So we're doing the best we can. Hopefully everything looks the way it's supposed to be. And I just realized also when I could swear I did it. I did not post Saturday's episode. So that'll be posted today, and this one will be posted pretty much right after it, depending on how fast Zoom is to render this. But hopefully we got some insightful stuff for you, especially when we talk health, because I can rant on that all day long. It's what I do.
Well, I just wanted to briefly mention, also so you know why I'm out of it and feel crummy because I've been seeing my chiropractor for a couple of weeks since my near accident, and that's helped loosen things up. But I've kind of run out of my bag of tricks of what I can do to try and help my neck. So I reluctantly made an appointment to, after I saw him yesterday, I went in to see the physical therapist at that office that I usually see. Now my wife is making fun of me for getting beat up by a little girl because she's not much bigger than my wife. So when I was sitting up on the exam table in order to examine my neck, she had to climb up on the table behind me in order to reach my neck. So, but uh a good what I've always thought of, and we haven't talked about this in a while, but a good hallmark of a trainer, and she is also a CS on top of her PT certifications. So a good hallmark of any sort of health provider, whether you're going to uh, a doctor, a physical therapist, or a personal trainer, is one, do they ask questions? Two, are they afraid to say I'm not sure? And three, do they watch you? Do they observe? Okay. Because she did ask questions, but we didn't even do that much yesterday. But she's very good at targeting, in the way that you write programs for me that I hate because they're very good at targeting the little things that I need um, specifically for me. And that's what she did with my neck. And she was asking how I was feeling, but really she was watching because we didn't do much yesterday because she could tell, okay, that's enough. Because we were pretty aggressive with dry needling and electric stimulation, and then a little bit of T-spine extension and rotation stuff. And she could tell I was struggling and I wasn't feeling so great. And so, even though she was asking how I was doing, I could tell she was watching and she knew, yeah, okay, that's enough for today. Well, work on some of the, here are some things to work on through the week. I'll see you at least once next week, and we'll see how much more we can do then.
Yeah, I had one of those yesterday with a kid I've been working with. He had a ulnar nerve transposition, and he's 15 years old. Yeah, he's in the same grade as my son. And he had just had his final doctor's appointment. He was like, "Yeah, cleared for everything." And I even specifically told him, ask if there's anything that your strength and conditioning coach needs to know. And he said, "Nope, nope, he can do everything." Except we were going to do front squats yesterday. And for those that know, your elbow is in this position, which a lot of normal people have trouble getting into. And I was just like, you know what? Let's get the light bar out and you tell me how it feels, but I'm going to watch too. And he did 5 or 6 reps on it and racked it up. And he was like, I felt great. And I was like, no, we're not going to do this now. We're going to give this, now we might do some warm up sets with it or some light bar sets here and there to get you back to that position, but your elbow is nowhere near ready for that. Well, actually, probably the shoulder girdle and the T-spine to get in that position was nowhere ready, but you saw it specific to the arm he had the surgery in. So he was kind of like this, cockeyed, and he couldn't correct it. And I could see on his face there was a little wince. So you can't just listen to the person. You have to actually watch and a little theory of mind. If you don't have great theory of mind, you're going to be a sucky trainer. I always tell people that I'll answer their question before they ask it. And they're like, how'd you know what I was going to ask? I'm like, I've seen that face before, especially from you. I've seen that face from you. I know that's how many reps am I doing? I forgot. Or, should I be doing this? Or, what's the next exercise? I say it before they even ask the question because I've been doing this so long and working with these people for so long. But yeah, I had to basically tell my client, I don't care what you felt. We're going to have to do a longer term approach to this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That is something I see a lot right now because it's summertime. See, there's way more kids in the gym when I'm working out. And something that drives me crazy is I see a lot of bros or older brothers or even dads trying to teach, middle school, high school age kids. And it's like, why are you teaching them to squat by having them squat? And I kind of feel like that's the only exercise where we do that. People seem to intuitively know, like on a deadlift, just throw a kid on the bar and say, lift that, right? We do variations and we do other stuff. And yet, when it comes to squat, it's get under the bar and squat. That person clearly is not comfortable doing that movement. So stop doing that movement. We have variations. I love the goblet squat to start with because it's so intuitive, but also a lot easier on the body. You're less likely to hurt something if you screw up the movement. Even if you're doing it with weight, you can just drop the weight.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, the goblet squat's great too because the weight's in front of you. And so if they have trouble with mobility on the way down and they end up leaning back, which is why we do the what we call the stripper squats, the rack squats,
mhm.
to help work on that mobility, you can push the weight out in front of you and counterbalance. I do a demonstration. I can't remember if I did it in the squat video or not for the business, but where you squat to the bottom with a goblet squat and I actually move the weight out in front, you see my body shift back because it has to, and then move it in, and it's kind of this little motion, and it helps people get to that deeper squat and get comfortable in it with that weight out in front and that
Yeah.
they can adjust, but then also work that weight in till it's up against their body and they can do it without having that weight out in front.
Yeah. And this is where it helps to have a workout buddy, even if you don't have a trainer, is someone who can watch and say, "Oh, that's not right." Because even if you feel something isn't right, it helps for to someone to be able to look and say, "This isn't what's right," but also, "Hey, maybe we should go backwards a little bit and do something more basic, do some more elementary movements because not only are you not doing this well, it's not getting better." So
Hmm.
that's another thing to look for is, ooh, you are really struggling with that movement. Okay, but that rep was a little better. Okay, it's getting a little smoother. It's still not great, but it's getting a little smoother with each rep, which means you're getting more comfortable with it. So we just need to tweak things. But if it's
Hmm.
not getting better, and especially if it's getting worse, then it's no, no, stop, stop. I don't care. Well, I'm not hurting. Well, yeah, you're not hurting right now. That doesn't mean we should keep going.
Yeah, and this is kind of my progression. There's an easy way to clean up form, but also uncover uh, anything that's going to hold their squat back if they're really pushing weight on their back. Uh, any kind of deficiencies. That's the word I was looking for. Any deficiencies. So obviously you start with a body weight squat, and you can do that warming them up for the first time. You can evaluate their squat for the first time. Put your hands out in front and show me how you squat. I'm not going to coach you at all. Just show me how you squat. 10 reps. And then if it's ugly, you coach them. If it's okay, you keep warming up. Goblet squats next. But then when you finally do put a bar on their back, I love to start with the pause squat. This is the thing I'm talking about here. Because if you pause for 3 seconds at the bottom and there's any deficiency in their squat, it's going to show up. Whether it's a weakness in one of the hips or the other, if it's a low back issue, if it's a mobility issue, they're not even going to be able to get there, right? We should already know that from the goblet squat. So, but yeah, if there's any deficiency in their body, it will show up in that pause squat. And then after you've done pause squats for a little bit, then you can go to the regular squats and start progressive overload realistically. So,
Well, speaking of deficiencies in the body, let's get to the clickbait portion of this. I had forgotten all about this, but yeah, we need a good Sydney Sweeney meme for extra
Oh,
clickbaitiness of
I can't believe that wasn't the first thing that came to my mind.
what is wrong with the left. And this is so beautifully demonstrated in this, and this actually segues into the Bongina stuff I want us to talk about later for reasons. But the latest controversy is the brand American Eagle hired Sydney Sweeney to do an ad campaign, and she's all in denim, and the catchphrase is she has good genes. And it's an obvious play on words because genes, Genes. Yes, she clearly has good genes. And there are two big reasons why she is the hot young thing of the moment. Besides being, a pretty darn good actress and someone who, opposite to so many young famous people her age, the more you hear about her, the more you actually like her, the more you hear about her personally. Of uh, you know, actually, so the reason this came up is because I was checking X to see, all right, what are people talking about? What's going on before we start today? And someone shared a screenshot from The Atlantic. So, again, major publication, a major traditional corporate news outlet is talking about this. And again, this isn't a problem of just people on the right. This is the meme of the guy sprinting way to the left and saying, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" Because they're pointing at you too, Sam, when they talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the company hasn't addressed the controversy. What controversy? You people are insane. Back to the Atlantic. But the ad, not unlike the famous and controversial Brooke Shields Calvin Klein campaign it appears to be playing off of, seems like it was perhaps meant to walk a line to be just controversial enough to garner some attention. Casting Sweeney to begin with supports this theory. Her image has been co opted by the right, accurately or not, in part because of where she's from, the Mountain West, and some of her hobbies, fixing cars. Even her figure has become a cultural stand in for the idea, pushed by conservative commentators, that Americans should be free to love boobs.
Yes, we should. And actually, this goes deep because
Dig it.
she is okay. So the thing I came across was not only is she getting the hell from the left, but I saw like right wingers being like, "This is sin. This is hedonistic," and it was just like, no, it sells jeans. That's what it does. Uh, but I came across that a little bit in my professional life because I was just talking with someone brought it up in one of the groups, and one of the ladies in there who's middle-aged and fighting for her youth. That's why she comes to see me. Started talking about how they talk about Sydney Sweeney, her age group demographic, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the one with the ugly face." And I piped up. I was like, I think her face is really pretty. And she was like, oh no, it's like disproportion in this and and just kept going with it. And I'm like, whoa. I could feel the Catty in the room. And I was like, oh, that's how middle-aged women talk about her. And here's the kicker. She has had no surgeries on her face. And in interviews about the surgery, she said, I considered one. And guess what it was? When she was 18 years old, she considered one surgery. And the world is, or the male world is glad she didn't.
What did you think about a breast reduction?
A breast reduction, yes, because apparently she got teased a lot for her massive tracts of land. And it's so that's what the middle-aged suburban female feels about Sydney Sweeney is that she's the one with the ugly face. But she's also the one that's getting all of the male attention. They actually got a good Saturday Night Live bit with her when she was like, I don't know why all my fans are male. but she's wearing the shirt that her boobs jiggle when she says it, you know. That was actually a good bit because it was true enough to be super funny. And it, I don't even know where they're coming up with this. It's like some feminist wrote an article about how to hate on her face because that's exactly what it sounded like. Like someone, oh, the proportion of this, it's, oh, they say she might have a little bit of Down syndrome or, you know, all this stuff. I'm like, I do not see that in her face. I did
I'm pretty
not at
sure
all.
that's not something you have a little bit of.
No, the problem is with her, with when it comes to these ladies that are holding on to their youth with Botox and fillers and all of these things, is she's naturally beautiful and young. And what is she about 30 maybe? So she's not even young.
I don't even think she's 30 yet.
Yeah,
That's
you do the research on that, Jamie.
she is 27.
27, so she's still young. Uh but where was I going? Oh, I got up a video of it. This is from Valuetainment, so I'm assuming we can share it here without getting busted for copyright. But they're playing a commercial, one of the commercials she's in. And this is the one that really kicks the controversy. And I wonder if someone in the department said, we're going to get more clicks if we get the woke mob after us.
Hmm.
Because this one was the one, if you're trying to avoid that, I would say was not smart. Did I share with sound?
You did not.
Okay, well,
Okay, boomer.
we'll go back a few seconds then. All right. Stop
Ah.
share. Share with sound. Take two.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Yeah, so that's the one where
Oh my gosh.
it really set off the woke mob because she was purposefully equating Genes with
Hmm.
Jeans. And she's blonde haired and blue eyed. So that was the one where I think that gave the fuel to the fire because the other one with the Mustang was, I mean, just showed her butt and said, I have good genes. And there was another one I'm not familiar with, but oh, where she's like being interviewed about doing a commercial for American Eagle and then gets up and walks away and says, I have good genes or something like that. And this one was the one that really gave the fuel because she purposefully said like hair color and eye color, which brought the Nazi comparisons with the Aryan race and all of that stuff. Was it on purpose? I think so because it's free advertisement. And so many people are so frustrated with the politically correct commercials and shows these days that it almost puts a fire in the people that would want to support the company that's spitting in the face of the woke mob.
Um, I was just trying to look up is how old the brand is because that's part of the passing down or but
I know it's
if
expensive because my niece was
yeah.
talking about it the other day. She's like, I have one pair of that and I think it's great and this is how expensive it is. And she actually puts a young 12-year-old girl does puts weight into how much something costs. And we had to window shop the Louis Vuitton
Oh
purses
geez.
in Paris and stuff. You know, the $4,500 purses and
I-
$16,000 earrings and
if that was purposeful to get a woke backlash and then ride the wave of the mockery from the other side, that's genius. Because I never would have thought of that because sane people don't look at just the ad copy there and go, oh my gosh, it's like 1920s Germany all over again. Well,
well, the
but
practical part of me wants to think it's on purpose because if it was a mistake, someone got paid way too much money for that ad campaign to make that kind of mistake.
mhm, yeah, but I mean, here you have, I just quoted from The Atlantic. The idea pushed by conservative commentators that Americans should be free to love boobs. Oh geez. Yeah, this is where we are. This is where we are today. Um the the nonsense of it all, uh while ignoring other things. And this segues me to what Dan Bongino posted on, because one of the things I find um interesting about the releases by Gabbard, the document releases on the Russia collusion narrative of 2016, but also there was a seemingly brief. There are still some people shouting about this, but there was a seemingly brief um, backlash against this. Of they're just trying to distract from not releasing the Epstein files, and I had said I don't think this is going away when we talked about Epstein the week before, and then you know what happens, the Friday after we talked about what I thought we both thought were the botched handling of the Epstein case, is now this huge, document dump comes in. Wow, this is some pretty big information. Um, but we had both thought this isn't going away, and we gave our reasons for it. And I'll get to that in a second. But I wonder if they thought, no, this will go away because we are becoming a society that our attention spans were already small and they're shrinking. And I have to wonder, is it because we're all so damned neurotic that we have become the dog from Up, and we're talking about one thing and then all of a sudden squirrel, and we are just so easily distracted by the next shiny object. We are so easily distracted by the squirrel running across the yard that we completely forget what we were talking about. It's this thing that we were obsessed with that was the most important thing in the world, and we had to create this controversy. Oh, but now there's this other thing, and we have completely forgotten about this thing. How many times when we were talking during the campaign, during the election, of all of the things, all of the controversy of the past, not even Biden's term, but even before then, of, you know, I keep bringing up the Vegas shooter, is we know more about this freaking astronomer CEO and his head of HR than we do about the Vegas shooter.
The sad thing is they could have not had any controversy if they had just not reacted. Someone in the crowd may have recognized them, but that would have been handled in private later. The fact that they tried to hide and got the singer to be like, "Oh, we just caught something," and everybody who caught it on camera can
Yep.
share it on social media,
Yep.
that was the problem. They should have just acted like they've been there before. As Barry Sanders' dad said when he said, when you score a touchdown, act like you've been there before. And he scored a lot of touchdowns.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Um, so
No,
actually
no,
let's
but also, to more recent stuff, we know more about this. What is it? Iowa, Idaho, the
oh,
guy
the
who
Idaho
killed
murders,
Idaho
the
murders.
the
Yeah,
college
yeah.
murders, yeah.
We know about more about that guy because he fits the adolescence show more profile. And so it's all over the news, even though he is the exception to the rule. It just happens to be the narrative of the day.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, that recency bias where and now everybody, I mean, I just hear people talking about it. They're like, "Oh, did you hear about that? Oh, it's like the show Adolescence," and, da, da, da. And they're all putting that together, and that was the point of the show. And I'm like, yeah, but how about the other 8,000 homicides that we have, this year already?
Yeah. Um, well, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about before I get to Bungie. Let's stay on this idea, is that um the people you listen to, uh so let me back up a second. So one of the reasons I like Steve Dace is because he's a nerd.
Hmm.
And so he will say things and he will have opinions and he will draw conclusions, but he's always backing it up with numbers because he's a numbers guy. A lot of what he did with the Ted Cruz campaign and the 2015 primary was the numbers, was uh, not just helping with the polling, but then also reading the polling and saying, okay, but what does this mean and how do we use it? And he brought up some interesting numbers a few days ago on one of his shows. Young men, that's defined as 18 to 29-year-olds. For 4 elections in a row, young men went to voted Democrat in the presidential elections. Obama's 2 terms, Trump's first term, and then electing Biden in 2020. That switched significantly in this last election. In 2024, Trump won. It was something like 60 or 65% of young men. And a big part of that was Trump went to them because he went to, we praised these long form interviews that he was doing, these long form podcasts, because it bypassed the corporate media and it gave you more context. So it let you see more who Trump the human being was. But something we didn't really talk about, I don't think, is that not only that, but the people listening to those podcasts are persuadable because they are mostly young men. And those people are way more persuadable than women who don't like him anyway and aren't going to like him for various reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of the reason Trump not only won the election, but won the popular vote pretty handily this go around was young men. There was a big shift in that demographic. And these were all people, some of which, like they said, I knew who Rogan was. You'd have to live under a rock, especially if you're in broadcasting and not know who Rogan is. But he didn't know who these other guys were. He didn't know who Smith or Theo or some of these other guys that Trump went on or talked a lot about Trump. He didn't know who they were until this election cycle. And since then, yeah,
he had
since
a huge
then,
bump with that one because that was a left-leaning demographic.
yeah, exactly. So since then, Dace has been paying attention to these people because the way he views it is this is a window into that demographic. And he's sensing that those people, those podcasters, and so perhaps their demographic is starting to get annoyed with Trump. And the Epstein files were a big part of that. And that is why Dace also thought this isn't going away and this could be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So this segues me into what Bongino talked about, because what I'm wondering is, you listen to those people more than I do, is if you are hearing that, and if are they talking about these Russia documents, and if charges are filed, will that be enough to satisfy that demographic that people are being held accountable, even if it's not necessarily the thing they want most held to account?
Okay, so I'm going to speak to 2 different crowds on this. First, I'll do the low-hanging fruit first. The libertarian pundit crowd, the Clint Russells, the redheaded libertarians, all of those out there. That would be like their number one issue right now. Because all they post about it at any time right now is when Trump posted the picture of Obama in O.J. Simpson's Bronco and the cops behind him, and there was a Vance and him in the cop cars. They would repost, quote tweet that with "nothing's gonna happen," because they're all kind of like checked out right now. So there's that crowd, couple percentage points of the population, but it was the difference in the last election, right? But then there's the young male crowd that you're speaking of, and some of them have been attracted to the first crowd because that was the first crowd to be speaking for them. were these libertarian-minded pundits that are like, "Hey, we need men, we need this, we need that, we need freedom." And that was, I think, the shift. It wasn't the shift towards the Republican Party. I think it was the shift towards the people who supported Trump who were not quite the Republican Party, and
Mhm.
that attracted them. Uh, Now, but you go back to that crowd, these are young men. What they want right now is a mate and a house. And the major things that, yeah, Epstein would be nice is accountability, right? It's accountability for someone who did wrong. It also resets the clock on some of these Me Too type stuff, right? Because it makes clear who the bad guy was. This was a person in power who was doing the bad thing. It's not all men. It's these people in power that are doing this. So it kind of resets that clock a little bit, but also it's the economy stupid. We are the young men in the world in the United States right now are not having sex and they can't afford a house. And they also know that if they can afford a house, they would be having sex.
So it's interesting you say that because one of the examples Dace used when he was talking about this was his own daughter and son-in-law, because he didn't give the exact numbers, but he said that they're a young married couple. They have a now about 1 year old daughter, and for half the square footage in not as nice a neighborhood, they are paying almost as much a month on their mortgage as he is, because that's how much inflation has kicked up the real estate market. But then also the biggie is the significant difference in interest rates between
I just
when
looked that
Dace
up.
bought his house and when his kids bought theirs.
Okay, so I just looked it up and because there was an announcement today on the Fed and they stayed where they're at 4.5%. Let me make sure I get that number correctly. 4.25 to 4.5% is where they stayed. So I actually got a call from our broker. Sound all fancy, our broker, but I got a call from our broker the other day, and I guess it was just like one thing on his calendar, like an annual check back on. And he was the guy who helped us get our loans for our house and all of those things. And I knew it was something that was scheduled ahead of time because he was going through the script and he goes, and let's look at oh, wait a minute. I can't get you a better deal than what you got because interest rates at minimum are 4.5 now. Now add the banking fees to that.
Mm-hmm.
Our interest rate on our mortgage we got right before COVID, 2018, either 2018 or 2019 is 1.7%. Nobody can beat that because the Fed
Yeah.
is even
Yep.
3% higher than that right now. So that's the minimum. The minimum is 4.25. So no bank can give you a lower rate than that. And they're going to give you a little bit higher than that because they got to make money too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So uh, he right in the middle of his script was like, "Oh, I can't give you a better offer than that. Hey, but we can also look at your insurance and all of these things. So we're going to have a meeting with that guy." But at the same time, it was like, "Yeah, don't even call me about a refi right now because the times are different." And until that changes, it's going to be exponentially more difficult for someone to afford a home because you got that included with the fact that BlackRock is buying up properties for more than their value, so it's driving up property
Oh
values.
yeah.
Yeah, so you've got those two things going into it, and BlackRock funds themselves, so they don't have to worry about the interest rate.
Yep. Um,
Adam Sosnick got into a big fight on Valuetainment the other day because he made the statement, and I don't think he's 100% incorrect, of you should be renting now. You should not be trying to own. And part of that is the interest rates. Now, if inflation is over, like when the last 4 years when Biden was in office and inflation was so high, your loan didn't make as big a deal. Because if your interest rate is under inflation, you're actually making money. In fact, I started paying minimum on a lot of things when I always pay extra principal, like my car and stuff like that, to pay it off sooner. But as soon as that inflation jumped up to 9%, 10%, I started paying minimum because you're making money if your interest rate is lower than the inflation.
And the important point here about these disaffected young men is that it's not just they can't do the natural things you want to do as you mature, of start a family, buy a house, you know, the American dream, if you will. It's not just that they can't do that, it's that they have their whole lives looked at their parents and their grandparents who could do those things. And they're looking and going, who screwed this up? And why aren't they paying a price? This was the great failing of both the Tea Party and the Occupy movement, and where they were co-opted by opportunists and grifters, and then the both of those movements just kind of dissolved. I don't think the young people of today are going to let that happen, because one of the mantras of both of those movements, and rightfully so, is that who's going to jail for the 2008 crash, and the way the real estate market in particular was manipulated. There were a lot of people that thought this can't be legal. Somebody should be going to jail.
Hmm.
In the same way that, hold on a second, look what happened to Enron. People went to jail because of the fraud that was happening at Enron. Not only did nobody go to jail for the 2008 housing market crash, they were all bailed out. The people who did it get paid off, and the little guy was left to pick up the tab.
That's the whole point behind the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street. And that's where the populist movement came from, whether you're a Bernie bro or you're a MAGA
Mm-hmm.
person,
And,
right?
and the fact that nobody was held to account, I think that is another thing that is driving especially young men right now, is that for those of us like us who are the older young men, the old graybeards of that group,
The edge
we're
of
old
Gen
enough.
X.
Yep,
Yeah.
we're old enough to remember or have even been a small part of those movements and seen that no one was held to account, and are dissatisfied with that. And even the younger people who weren't around or weren't paying attention at the time, they know that nothing happened there. And then again, pick your controversy of, oh well, we move on and nobody is held to account. So I'm just wondering if, all right, is it Epstein in particular because of the nature of that case, or is it somebody in a position of power who did something wrong needs to be held to account? And a serious position of power, as you've said,
Well,
at some point, people at lower levels should be given blanket amnesty. The high level people need to be held to account.
I think this is a cross the streams moment, is what it is. The people you're talking about are the actual bad people, and there's a person who did an actually bad thing, but he's connected to all of them. And so we're at a moment where these two things collide, and unfortunately, it didn't malfunction in the weapons. It made it stronger because for some reason, nothing's happening, even though we can all see it. We can see the bright light in the sky when these streams crossed, but nothing's happening. In fact, I actually think it's solidifying what's behind the curtain.
So here is what Bongino posted on Saturday the 26th. And this is a post from his official FBI FBI DD Giggy. We were just talking about Sydney Sweeney. Deputy Director Bongino. So this is his official FBI X account. During my tenure here as the Deputy Director of the FBI, I have repeatedly relayed to you that things are happening that might not be immediately visible, but they are happening. The Director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us. But what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. We are going to conduct these righteous and proper investigations by the book and in accordance with the law. We are going to get the answers we all deserve. As with any investigation, I cannot predict where it will land, but I can promise you an honest and dignified effort at truth. Not my truth or your truth, but the truth. God bless America and all those who defend her. Respectfully, Dan. That sounds a lot to me like what I just said last time we talked about this that needs to be said, and it needs to be Bongino who says it. My only quibble is this should have been a press conference, not an ex post.
Mm.
He needs to stand in front, even if not a press conference, because those can turn into a circus with, the blatantly hostile CNNs who aren't going to give you a fair shake. All right, so if you don't do a press conference, then you need to do a sit down with someone who is friendly but also honest, like has integrity. So, someone who is friendly enough to know, all right, look, I can't answer these questions. So let's just start off with that of don't try the gotchas, don't try, oh, you're evading that. No, I can't answer these questions for these reasons, but let's have a conversation about this other stuff so I can convince you that, yeah, we are actually doing things. It also sounds to me like reading between the lines there when he talks about how shocked he is about how corrupt things are, is that he's saying what I thought he needed to come out and say, and is probably the case, which is we can't do all the things you want us to do as fast as you want us to do them because we don't have enough people we can trust.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the counter argument to that, though, is something I've heard. I heard a lot of people saying, even in the transition period, even before Trump was inaugurated, is hold on a second. What we have been talking about for several years now with the weaponization of the FBI is that this organization is so irretrievably corrupt that it should just be disbanded. The FBI as a whole should be disbanded as part of a streamlining of federal law enforcement in general.
Mm-hmm.
Something I've long complained about is why do we have an FBI and also an ATF and also a DEA and also a and so to that point is okay, then why aren't you just disbanding it and starting over? Which is something that Bongino had said as a broadcaster is
Mm-hmm.
find out who the good people are, transfer them to other places to keep working on actual law enforcement and just gut everything else. All right, well, if you're not doing that, then you need to sit down with someone who has enough integrity, but is also friendly enough to let you say your piece and say, we can't do that because, and we can't do that for reasons I can't tell you about. Here are some reasons I can tell you about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's tough. Because gutting your workforce is from like you said, from just gutting it and getting the people you can trust sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
But logistically, there's a lot of work being done right now. And most of these people, even if they're against you, are doing work that is necessary for the thing to run. It's like you could like say you got a bad health report and you own a restaurant.
According to the FBI's own website, approximately 38,000 people work for the agency. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And how many people besides Patel and Bongino do you trust
Well,
to start that winnowing process?
yeah, I try to bring this down to a level that us normal people can understand. Say you own a restaurant and you got a bad health report, and it's because you've got some crappy employees. If you fire everybody, how long does it take to open up again?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have to try to fix it from within to some degree, fire a few people, replace them, train them, do all of these things. Otherwise, you're basically starting your business again. And anybody in the audience can identify with me. If you start a business from scratch, there is a startup time. There is a time that is set up. There's a time that is hiring. There's a time that is training. There is a time that is probationary with the people you trained just in case. And you have to go through all of those motions again and do that with 30,000 people. And not only that, there's a high percentage of those 30,000 people that are highly specialized in what they do. So now you have to have somebody specialized in training that specialized person. Did you fire that person? Do you have to train that specialized person? Do you even know how to train that specialized person? Because you're two people at the top of a giant conglomerate thing that you only have so many degrees of expertise. You may be great at them, but even as a generalist like I am, I can't train everybody in everything because I only have so much knowledge of anything. And so, yeah, so you've got these layers of competency that you have to refill, and then you have to refill their staff, and then you have to train their staff. And the United States has a lot of shit to do, especially the FBI. Imagine if the FBI went away. I know the libertarians would argue with me on this, but imagine if the FBI went away like that. What's our murder rate going to be? What's our organized crime rate going to be? What is our drug trafficking rate going to be? What is our child trafficking rate going to be? Libertarians, you keep going on the child trafficking. Yeah, if we just eliminated the FBI right now without any replacement plan, without anything, how high is that going to be till we figure out how to take care of it?
And to the libertarian of, well, this shouldn't be a federal issue anyway. Okay, it shouldn't be, but it is. And something a lot of people don't realize is that the FBI, it's not just their investigative power, they are a technical resource for state and local law enforcement. So even when the FBI isn't involved in an investigatory manner, so for instance, when I was scrolling through looking for this post, one of his more recent posts was about how FBI was on the scene in this Midtown Manhattan um, shooting incident that happened yesterday or the day before. Okay, and he made the point that they are not leading the investigation; they are just there to assist. That happens a lot, where even if an FBI field office doesn't send personnel, they will correspond with state and local of, hey, we need help with this. Hey, can your lab run this thing for us? Hey,
Hmm.
can you look up in your databases this guy or this thing? So it is way more complicated than just snap your fingers and get rid of it.
Yeah, well,
But
even here we had a death on a cruise ship here locally
mm,
in coming out of Galveston, and there is no real information on it, but there's no suspected real foul play. But because it happened on a cruise ship, the FBI has to be the jurisdiction because
mhm.
we're in international waters, and even though it's ported out of Galveston, Galveston police can't handle it because of the way international law works. So it's not just the US law that's holding us back. It's the entire world. I think we could probably at some point exist without the FBI like the libertarians think. Probably at some point, but we have to create at least an integrated system with our local law enforcement where we can communicate, and the system that does not exist is what I'm saying. It does
Mhm.
not exist. The system that exists for local law enforcement to work with local law enforcement half a country away is the FBI. we have not integrated these things enough. Because, so, okay, say I committed a murder here. I'm not going to, disclaimer, do not clip me. Say I committed a murder here and I went to Washington State, and there's no way for Southeast Texas law enforcement to coordinate anything with Washington State law enforcement. I get away with it. It's easy as that, right? Right now, that system is the FBI. We need to replace it with something before we just destroy the thing that comes. Now, can we probably gut a lot of it? Yeah. There's so much admin that's part of that we could probably gut. But we can't just get rid of every agent. We can't get rid of all of the admin because someone's got to coordinate stuff, you know.
Oh, another reason he needs to sit down with someone and these can't just be posts is because there are questions that are really annoying to Trump's base that need to be answered because to the point of we don't have enough people we can trust. Okay, well, I can think of three people just off the top of my head because they've been on the Steve Day show or Valuetainment or how many whistleblowers got fired
Mm.
and have not been rehired.
That is something that I'll be 100% with your statement there. These guys and gals should have been reinstated like that with past pay, with
Yep.
back pay.
Well, why is Hegseth is doing that in the DOD
Hmm.
for people that were discharged honorably or other because they wouldn't take the jab or you know uh, that was the main reason he's doing it in DOD. Why aren't you in FBI? Why have you not reinstated at the very least? One of the problems with these whistleblowers is not only did they get fired, but they were fired. I can't remember the term for it, the civilian equivalent of a dishonorable discharge, meaning they can't go get another job in law enforcement.
Hmm.
For crying out loud, that is literally the least you could do. But as you say, if if you are Bongino shocked down to your core because of how corrupt things are, well, here are some people who put their lives and livelihoods on the line to stand up and let people know what was going on and do the right thing. I'm pretty sure you can trust them. So why have they not been reinstated?
Hmm. Well, I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah.
That's why I don't even have a snarky answer to that.
Well,
So,
well, setting aside the griping, let me go back to kind of my core question for you, which is, all right, well, enough ranting about all the things that are wrong. Things seem to be moving in the direction of some high level people might be about to be charged with some pretty serious offenses. And I'm talking Brennan, Clapper, Comey. Those are probably the big three. All the memes about Obama, the odds are you can't you can't file charges against him. It's too complicated. It would also
hmm.
be too politically messy. I don't remember who I saw say this is what is probably going to happen is they're going to let him twist in the wind for a while and then Trump's going to pardon him. Because that would be a savvy political move and may tactically be the only move you have because you probably aren't going to be able to prosecute him anyway.
Okay, so you're talking about the young male crowd that was independent or left leaning that shifted. I think that would be a bad move for them because what it would be very reflective of is something that makes the rounds in that crowd is the hatred for his statements on Hillary Clinton when he didn't charge her. Because that is something that put a very sour taste in their mouth. That you said you were going to do this thing, and then at the end of the day, you're like, that's not politically good. And,
Yeah. Even if high level people like Clapper, Brennan, and Comey, all of who were director levels. So
Hmm.
so that's those are big time positions. Those are the kinds of people, the kinds of positions where we little people look and say, those people get away with anything. Because
Hmm.
in the past they have gotten away with anything. So that is what I was wondering is would would people in positions that high being charged with crimes, would that be enough to satisfy that base who is has been screaming for years, someone needs to be held to account. And now, as you pointed out, a lot of them have been screaming for so many years that they are now blackpilled and nothing's going to happen.
Hmm.
Would
Yeah,
would
that's
that be enough to get those people to go, oh, okay, well, I guess accountability is going to happen.
yeah, and this is you use the right word with the black pill there. The so for those that aren't familiar, if you don't know the pill system, it's originated with the Matrix, where he holds out the red pill and the blue pill. Blue pill, you can just stay in your pod and not know anything new, right? So you're still in your world. You're the white rabbit on, or no, the white rabbit was the person he was talking to on the
Hmm.
computer. What was his? He was still Neo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're still Neo. You're in your pod. Red pill, we're basically going to come get you and take you out of your pod, and you're going to be a real human again, but you're going to live in this sucky world,
Yep.
and we're trying to save. So, the red pill, blue pill. So, in the political space, red pill means you're awake to all the corruption, right? Blue pill means you're going to go ahead and be just a citizen and keep doing what the elites tell you to do. On top of that, you've got the black pill and the white pill. The black pill is when you've been red pilled and you become nihilistic about it. And the white pill is when you've been red pilled, but you have hope for the future and you think things can change. So you're right. So many people, if even with Comey and all of them going down, they may have a little blip of joy, but if the head of the snake never gets held to account, then they will be black pilled again. And when you're black pilled, they may be the people that are susceptible to, something like Elon Musk's proposed American Party, or just to not vote at all, to just become apathetic with every election. That's probably the two most likely paths for them, because that crowd still loves Elon. And as they should. He's like the ultimate entrepreneur. He's crazy and he's a little bit, you know, not in touch with reality sometimes, but at the same time, he is somebody who I think means well, and even if he's wrong, that's the thing. He means well even if he's wrong, uh, and he backs it up. So I think that crowd will either become apathetic or shift towards whatever he's doing, uh, which is not good for either party, right? Uh, the problem, okay, so you brought up Enron and Madoff. If somebody that powerful goes down, the question in someone like myself or this crowd that you're referring to's head always is, well, who was he sacrificed to protect? And if these three people go down, but someone like Obama stays unscathed, even though the evidence all points to him or Hillary Clinton or I mean, who knows where this goes? Epstein, but also could it be Klaus Schwab? Could it be any of these other global elites that are out there? There's all if it's going to be some high level person that goes down, there's always going to be the question of who was actually the ringleader in this. If Madoff went down, who was in charge of that? Because you just brought up a whole situation where everybody got bailed out. Was this a sacrificial lamb to take the pressure off people, off the things? Is Diddy the sacrificial lamb to not look at the actual record label execs, right? Who own the prisons in California, by the way.
Hmm.
So where does this lead, and who's actually being punished, and who's being just thrown to as a breadcrumb, as a red herring, you know?
Yep.
Which is funny because Diddy was the sacrificial lamb and he still got off light.
Yeah, yeah, yay for our justice system. All right. Well, annoyingly, but kind of positively. I think the other thing Bongino is saying there in his post is these things take time if you're going to do them right.
Hmm.
And we are going to do them right.
Well, and that was a problem with the marketing to begin with, which it might have been necessary to win the election,
Hmm.
but there should have been an element of that to begin with instead of we're going to do this on day one.
Hmm.
It should have been we're going to start this on day one.
Yeah. Uh, yeah. Well, we'll see what another week brings us and talk about it then. Hopefully we'll see movement on this because it is important. It is, one of the things I ranted about during the election was, hey, Trump, if you want to know why they went after you, it's because you laughed off the lock her up stuff after you got elected.
Hmm.
It was confirmation that it's business as usual.
Hmm.
It's we get to do whatever we want and not be held to account. So now we're going to go after you in ways that are we are now finding out with these document releases are complete fabrications and almost certainly illegal.
Yeah, and that's why I brought that the Hillary Clinton stuff up is because it will be just a repeat
Hmm.
of that. Not only from the opposition side of we can get away with this, but from the people who supported you, their side. Well, yeah, the worshipers are going to still worship, but all of that big giant glob of people in the middle are going to say, okay, this is the second time you've done it. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, you're the problem, right?
And we have been talking about this primarily because of the political side of it is the political impact of these young men voting block that you won over. So when it
Well,
comes to like the
young men in
political,
period. It's not just voting block, it's working block, it's
well,
mating pool, it's all of these things. If they just become completely apathetic to everything, we're gonna spiral very quickly.
that's what I was getting to is we didn't even talk about the societal impact of creating young men who you make either completely apathetic or the flip side the that's a best case scenario. The worst case scenario is you now have young men who can't find a mate, who can't find a job, and oh yeah, the powers that be continually screw them over. That is a recipe for uh something I wanted to talk about that I forgot about that we'll talk about next time, which is this is one of the reasons the third world is what it is because you have young men ramped up with testosterone and anger and they don't have an outlet because they don't have a mate, they don't have a job, they aren't building a home in a community, and the powers that be get to do whatever the hell they want. That leads to violent outbursts.
I wish I had every episode we've done memorized because I would love to refer you to the episode where the CIA, I mean, how the Taliban was formed, because that is exactly the catalyst that was, or that was exactly the groundwork that was needed for an organization like ISIS or the organization like the Taliban to be formed, because they recruited angry, lonely, apathetic young men and gave them a meaning. And that part of that meaning was if you support us, one day you can marry, because their prospects of doing that were zero. And that's kind of where we're getting with like 80% of the men in this country, where their prospects are not zero, but they're pretty damn slim. And yeah, it's getting worse and worse and worse, especially with the education gap. We're on our way to about, I think we're over 60%. We're about at two-thirds female to male ratio in colleges. Although I did see something earlier today that apparently the highest percentage college degree demographic is gay men. and the lowest is lesbian women.
Okay.
That was interesting.
Curious.
Yeah, I was,
Don't know what to make of that, but it is interesting.
it is interesting. But realistically, just male, female, women are about two-thirds versus men in college. And women are using college education to, as you pointed out many times, with people who have dirty jobs but make millions of dollars, they don't get the attention because women are using college education as a marker of competence instead
Hmm.
of what you actually do for a living and how much you make.
Yep. All right. Well, we weren't very cheery today, but
All right.
maybe we'll find something fun to talk about
Yeah, did you think of any
Saturday.
fun Wheel of Time things?
Um,
I did I send you something? I thought of something the other day. I swear I sent you something.
um, there is a so I've been going back and forth with my son, and there are some interesting gender dynamics to be discussed with the White Tower versus the Black Tower and how they treat each other.
Mm.
How catty and nasty the Aes Sedai can be, um, with especially with people who they think are beneath them. Because he's in Path of Daggers right now, and he was commenting on the way the Aes Sedai treat the Windfinders and the Kin. Um, but also that isn't that surprising because that's not that different than how they treat each other. Um, and there's a subtle, whether purposeful or accidental commentary there on the the long running feminist screed of if women ran the world, things would be perfect. No, they wouldn't.
Oh God, I could probably find a Facebook post about that with all the comments in the I think we thought of it before because I did a random sample of the comments that had like 3,000 comments on it, and I did 30. I thought that was a good random sample. I just scrolled, click without looking, and it was on a post that was like all men are gone, what would happen? And they were like, "Oh, the world would be perfect. Oh, nothing. There would be no more war." And da, 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 da. I'm like, "Yeah, you also can't make babies." But at the same time, yeah, the violence would eventually happen, and the violent women would rule. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have some fun with that next time, and then next week for social political, we'll see what the heck happens.
All right. We'll see you next time.